everyone, and welcome to another Scots Whay podcast. And today I'm going to be talking with Heather McDade and Laura Jones of 404 Inc. Publishers. Hello both.
Hello.
I'm going to start with the most original question, which is, tell us in your own words about 404 Inc. and how it began.
The origin story, the more interesting one involves Robot Wars. The less interesting one
does not involve
well, let's talk about Robot Wars.
Yeah, go for it, that's your part.
Well, so Laura and I were working together for the Saltire Society doing their virtual book festival, Scotlit Fest, and while we were working there we were kind of talking about what we wanted to do in the industry or we wanted to see in the industry, because we both studied publishing, and we realised quite early on that our ideas aligned and we'd both been individually thinking the same things but not taking the leap to launch it. So we figured we would join forces might be a good idea, but we spoke about that quite a lot. But then Robot Wars came to Paisley because that's where they were filming it. So we went to see Robot Wars and it was amazing. And then on the car ride home we were like, are we actually going to do it or are we going to keep talking about it? And on the car ride home we just kind of decided we're going to launch it. And that was in March. And I think we laid the groundwork for everything. It took us 3 months to come up with a name though, but like Robot Wars was like when we decided like we're not just going to keep talking.
Yeah, I forgot, come up with a name. Oh no, that's no good. I don't like it.
Honestly, for 3 months we had half a name. We had ink.
Yeah, we had
just putting shit words in front of ink. And like,
We thought it was very clever to have ink as INK, not INC.
We're like, revolutionary.
Yeah.
I found out loads of other publishers have also done it as well. But yeah, we just put every word possible in front of it, and then we got to Error Ink, which doesn't roll off the tongue, and then you were like, what about 404? And then we're like, yeah, that's quite good actually.
Yeah, we like the sound of
and
that.
then we launched it, like, I think we registered it the next day. We don't really wait around when we have a good idea, evidently, but
I suppose one of the good things about working collaboratively is if that's a word, I don't think it is, there's the support you can give each other, but I suppose the difficulty is finding out whether your ideas are the same. And
I think we worked out our ideas were the same from when we were talking, but our kind of backgrounds and approaches are very different. So like anyone who's ever worked with us will know, like, Laura's the more sensible, she researches stuff, she has actual industry experience that goes, that's not possible. Whereas I come from a journalism background where deadlines are like a week from now, so it makes sense to me to just jump in and do stuff. And I think between it we get this kind of middle ground where we go faster than normal, but you actually stop us like killing ourselves with overworking.
Just, I'm the one that checks the bank account and says no.
Yeah.
And then
Stop.
I'm like, well,
And then if I deem that the cash flow is worthy, then yes, we will do it.
So what was it when you were having your initial discussions about the way publishing is, perhaps, or in mainstream publishing, that you thought, I'd like to do something different?
I think the main thing is that nothing really excited us. I think that there's very worthy authors out there who I think could be presented in a way that's just so much more interesting. The big problem I always experienced and felt was that down south in England, like, the representation of Scottish literature isn't as good as it could be.
It's almost non-existent, I think.
Yeah, and it's absolutely not the fault of Scottish publishers, but there's something that we can do. We can shout a lot louder about our books and be a lot more passionate about them. And so we have this quite sneaky way of marketing ourselves when we launched, that we marketed ourselves as a UK publisher. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a bit of a roundabout way, because we didn't want people to think, oh, why are they marketing themselves as UK? Are they like pretending? Are they not proud? Is it the Scottish cringe going on here? Mm-hmm. But no, it's the opposite. It was meant to like try and get some representation in English bookshops, and hopefully the sales will be good there. And then they'd find out, oh, they're based in Edinburgh. We've had people ordering books from us saying, like in America, asking why the posters were so expensive. I say, it's because we're in the UK. Like, oh, I thought you were an American publisher. Like, we kind of apparently put out an American vibe to some people. So that's quite interesting. So we wanted to present local voices throughout the country as much as we could in an interesting way. I think that's where you're kind of...
My soapbox about social media. We just went to so many events where publishers or industry people would say social media is a shop window and it doesn't make you money. Mm-hmm. That's what you do to maintain the appearance, so that bookshops, and that's where you get sales. And we just thought that was really short-sighted, because I buy most stuff via stuff I see online, and we just felt people weren't getting sales through social media or like building an audience through it properly because they weren't trying hard enough. And if you don't think you can do something, you're definitely not going to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we always went in with a view of, we don't have the bookshop connections when we launched. We don't have all the other infrastructure, but we have social media, and we just felt we could use it better. And I think we did. I mean, our first video for Patreon, our launching thing, we didn't say who we were, and we had just a glitchy video that said page not found yet, and that was it. And people gave us money on Patreon off the back of that, and we're like, that told us that there was a gap for just interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I was one of those, I didn't know who was behind it, but this kind of came up and you're like, oh, this is new, this is, it piqued my interest, and sometimes that's what you need that kind of in.
Yeah, we just thought that anonymity gave us the chance to just do weird stuff and see what happened, because we knew, especially from Scotland Fest, friends back you because you're all friends and support each other, but we wanted to see what people thought when they literally didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nice to see a lot of our friends were backing it without knowing it was us.
And we were experiencing fatigue of having ourselves out there on social media all the time, ironically. You know, when you run a virtual literary festival, you've been living online and you've been telling everybody to come to my events and do this and take part, and we just wanted to kind of step out of the limelight a little bit, because we thought, you know, launching a new publishing company a few days afterwards would have been a bit, you know, I don't know if showing off is the right term, a little bit egotistical, you know, so we decided to do it.
Kind of like, this is how you should do it, rather than...
Yeah, do it for the actual, you know, the brand and the content, as opposed to...
So, I mean, you mentioned Patreon and the way that you are funded, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Patreon's been going on for quite a while. I think people still think it's a really new thing, but it's been going a good few years. It's more of a rolling crowdfunding situation that most people will know Kickstarter, and they'll know that that's a per project system. Patreon's more of a, you're investing in that artist, and it's not a project. It's it could be a monthly item that the artist puts out. It could be when they want. We have our system is when we want, which is twice a year. So people are pledging money. They can pledge anything they want, but we have tiers that are like Kickstarter. So if you give us $5, you'll get the ebook. If you give us $10, it's an American company, so it's in dollars. It's not nothing kind of dodgy going on there. Up, and it goes up like that, and it just means that we can see money that's definitely going to come in. It's effectively a subscription service. That's how we've been working it. Other artists, you know, obviously, like the biggest kind of aspirational figure, I guess, would be Amanda Palmer, and you know, who uses it pretty much every month. She's putting out something, and she's guaranteed getting 15,000 grand or pounds or something like that. And
the first time I kind of came across was in, you know, like small independent music labels were starting to do something similar. Things like Kickstarter, as you said, it tended to be projects, so maybe somebody was putting together a film, or there was going to be one book and they would film it, but this kind of rolling, as you see. And I think the thing that it does is it engenders a sense of belonging in the people who get involved.
Yeah, that's what we were aiming for. I don't know if we quite nailed it, because we got so much attention, excitement over our first book, Nasty Women, which came just a few months after we launched the Patreon properly. Our focus was very soon diverted elsewhere, so we didn't use Patreon as much as we wanted to. It's definitely on our list to expand, I think, in future. There's definitely something that could be used with that in a long-term basis.
I think the other thing we liked about it is the money's publicly visible, which seems a weird thing to be happy about, but we don't, like, I think in particular with publishing, there's a lot of secrecy about stuff, like about sales, about how much money people have, and we were just like, we don't care if people say how much money we get, and we were like, we liked that kind of idea of transparency, and that's another reason we like Kickstarter as well, was like, instead of just being like, give us money for books, we're like, you can see how much money we're asking for, how much we need, and we just kind of felt that was lacking quite a lot, and
and it's good to not rely on good old Creative Scotland money.
Yeah,
that's always nice as well.
Absolutely.
We did get a good couple of grand from them to do our first lit mag, which I will always be thankful for, because they were, you know, before anybody knew us, we actually met up with them a few times beforehand with several A4 sheets of paper of ideas of things we wanted to do, and they said, okay, just bring it down, and you know, apply for the open project funding for one of these, and we'll see then. And luckily they've been incredibly supportive, and I'm glad we haven't needed to go back to them since, you know, that was the boost we needed to become sustainable, at least for a good while. So so the Patreon's just nice as a...
I think it's underused.
It is underused.
it's one of those, like, comic creators use it a lot,
Yeah.
and they, like, thrive on it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just don't get, like, there's this weird disconnect between books and comics. I know there's a lot of different things with, like, being a creator of it, but I just feel like the books world just doesn't see the potential that the comics world have, and if they, like, there's a lot that they could take from it, so...
Well, I think the books world is still trying to come to terms with many things. You know, whether it's, and we'll talk about events a little bit later, but the way you put on events, or the way it's very much, this is the way we've done it for, you know, almost centuries here, you could say, but certainly decades. And they're slow to accept change and can grab that, definitely. But I think hopefully you saw from the response, as you say, it was initially just almost like a little teaser of what will be, but the initial response, there is an audience or a readership out there who want to kind of join into that.
Yeah, and we want to make that a long-term thing as far as we can.
Yeah, it's been quite exciting because obviously our goal was to build more of a community around the books, but like we've met loads of other publishers who were doing it before we came on. So there's likes of like Dead Ink down in the Midlands. They're doing pretty much the same thing, and they've been doing it since before we came on. But they're just doing such a good job, and they're showing that like publishers who did exist pre last year, the year before, when all the Kickstarters kicked off, can change and do stuff. I don't know. I feel like the indies are doing a lot more exciting stuff. For me, anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned the magazines. I think the first publication was Error, wasn't it? Which was so you have 3 of these out now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All with a kind of individual theme, Error, F Word and Power. We'll talk a little bit about the ideas behind doing the magazine.
That was testing the waters for us. That was a mixture. Like I had experience in typesetting while working at Saraband, but I really wanted to push those skills into something that was a little bit more inclusive of pictures and something that was a bit more of a challenge. And you, because you're Heather being in the journalism end and the music writing end, we thought we could bring together literary kind of fiction and delving into the music world through interviews, and we thought maybe some reviews as well. We thought there was room for something different, because at that time Gutter was very much the kind of Scottish literary magazine, and we thought there's room for an alternative. So we kind of went in thinking, how could we be Gutter but be different?
Be like if we did Gutter.
How would we do Gutter?
Because the thing is, I subscribe to Gutter and I really like Gutter, but it's just, I think there's a weird like there's a difference between the stuff you like and the stuff you would make if you were in charge. So like I really like all these literary magazines, but I'm always like, I don't think if I was to ever make a literary magazine that's how it would turn out. So this was quite fun, actually, just throwing any idea that no one could veto because we were in charge.
Yeah, and again, it's also more about fun. Most of the stories, I think, the stories that kind of attract our attention are usually funny, dark. Again, that's where we found a good old Chris McQueer with his sci-fi Glaswegian fellow. You know, it's we're attracted to the stuff that's a little bit more off the wall, that I think your traditional publisher is not really going to touch.
Yeah.
Or, and I think it turned out we actually had pretty good taste. Like some of the writers we've included have won Scottish Book Trust New Rise Awards and whatnot. So I'm like, oh, that's been a nice kind of little validation for us. So like, oh.
Yeah, and like got into story shops since we published them as well.
Yeah, so that's been good.
So the how it looked, that was, you came up with that and wanted to...
Yeah, we talked to Bell and Bay and the printers in Glasgow.
Yeah.
And we said, well, we had a meeting and we have no idea what to do with this. What size do you think it should be? And he showed us loads of things, like, okay, we could be that size, and we had Gutter as a reference. And it kind of just came down to price point, because, as it always does, so he told us how much it would cost to print a Gutter-sized book. He said, but you could, for the exact same price, go bigger. He said, this is the limit that we can give you for the same price. I'm like,
bigger's better.
yeah, that was it. I was just imagining, and we knew how the paperweight was going to be really heavy. I thought, this is going to be a beast.
It's like, weirdly, I think it's the same size dimensions as like the Walking Dead comics or just any graphic novel. So I was like, oh, these, like, that's why I liked it.
Because we try to include comics in them as well, which is something that we don't think literary magazines have really touched on very much, if at all. So we knew it, as soon as we realised it could be that big, well, that's room to really showcase comics and illustration a bit more. So that was a no-brainer. Yeah. We thought we had a bargain. It's like,
because you should say, for people who haven't seen a copy, or I mean, these are sturdy publications.
I mean, you
Yeah.
hear it come through the letterbox. Is how
You
we
know,
describe it.
you
In
know
fact,
when a
yeah.
4 publication's come through your door.
My postman bent the second one, and I was
no.
like, oh, what have you done? And I went,
Oh.
oh, well, that's my problem. But it doesn't fit easily through a letterbox.
No, it's true.
So how did you get, you spoke about having comics in it, and you interviewed Wilco Johnson in the first
yeah.
one as well, who I didn't know was in Game of Thrones, from
Yeah.
being the kind of mad guitarist and Dr. Feelgood. But, so right from the start you thought we're going to have a balance of, we're not just going to do fiction, we're going to kind of make essays as well, of course.
Yeah, we figured for writing, the actual creative writing, we don't read one thing, so we don't want to publish one thing. But for the features, we're like, I think this is something that's kind of happened through all our books unintentionally as well, or partially intentionally. It's like, not everyone who describes themselves as a reader, they're not the only people who read books, so we're like, we wanted to include stuff like music, so music fans would pick it up and then also read creative writing that they probably wouldn't otherwise read. And we also had an interview with Girls of Steel, who are like an all-girls robotics school team in America, and they just go compete with fighting robots. And like, people who would read that feature probably aren't going to read Glaswegian sci-fi, but like, we just find the intersection of like people who aren't necessarily a traditional, air quote, traditional reader, picking up something because they like the look of one of the features, and then discovering all this other stuff. Because one example is the second issue. We have Frank Arrow from My Chemical Romance, and since we did the Creeper book, a lot of fans have found out about that because they like MCR, picked that up, and they went, oh, actually it's not bad. Like, and we're like, that's what we like, is we're not expecting people who wouldn't normally read it to be like, oh, we're like not overjoyed, but you know, we just want them to be like, oh, I didn't expect to like that, but I'm kind of like just get new people, get right in front of new people, basically.
Yeah, and we have Scottish Gaelic as well, because I very much, I'm sympathetic to the revival. I have some friends who work in Gaelic revitalisation and so on, and it's difficult though. It's a challenge because I think we actually wanted to do a lot more translation, and the money you need to do translation. I even want to do it from English into Gaelic. I did want to do that, but that I've learned that's probably beyond our remit. So we do try as far as we can to.
So, I mean, that's a cost I think that most people wouldn't even consider. Is that the kind of thing that you come up against as you're going, oh, these are ideas that I would like to do, but actually...
Yeah.
I think all of our books would be, or everything we've done would be slightly bigger or slightly wilder if we had all the money. Even stuff like, so all our books are in paperback, but like normal publishers will publish a lot of their books in hardback and then go paperback, really boring stuff like that, but we just can't afford to do that, so we're just always,
No, our third book that we did in hardback, that was painful to send that order to print. It's worth it for that, but oof.
Well, maybe that's a good example of how traditional publishers did it. You got a big paperback or a hardback that would cost 20 quid or something like that, and the amount of people that say, well, I just wait for the paperback to come out.
Exactly, yeah, and we're those people. We know those people, we are those people, and I think we're aware that the kind of people, by and large, our demographic are people who aren't, they don't have money coming out of their ears. They'll buy their books carefully and they'll consider them, so we want to make them as accessible as possible while not tanking our company.
Yeah, because I think we're more interested in publishing books and getting them in front of people, rather than making money, but like the making money thing is somewhat secondary to just finding a book that we really love and just doing anything we can to get it in front of new readers. But one day we'll find a better balance of that.
So, with your background in journalism, and people always talk about, the death of journalism or whatever. Certainly, I used to be a kind of obsessive magazine buyer, and now that's kind of, going by the way because everything's online or whatever. But you do still want to think to pick up a publication where, your interests are catered for. So I want to read, a music interview with someone who I maybe haven't heard from for a while, or someone new, or I think about the amount of money I used to spend on comics and don't anymore as well. Was that the kind of almost like a digest of things that you liked, and you think, well, if we like them, there is going to be other people out there that will as well.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that we were talking about up front is we just like the idea of people picking up the print stuff, and it's not like on that we have that as one side, but it's not a snobbery of being like print or die. So we have digital versions of everything except one of our books because it's for an event. Because we just, I don't know. We just wanted people to read the books, and we don't care how they do it. And I think part of it, we will do everything in print and make it look as good as we can, because we still think there's a value to the printed product, and print isn't dead.
No.
It's just one of those, you have to adapt. And I think a lot of the people in print, particularly music, which is where I'm, like, a lot of them just haven't adapted very well to it. Or the ones that have come up since the print era, they have a business model that factors it in, and so they thrive. But yeah, I just don't like that print is dead nonsense. I just feel like you just need to work harder to get people to pick it up.
Yeah.
Like, but I also don't think that there's anything wrong with the digital stuff. I just think you need to work out how to balance the two and not pit them against each other. I feel like everyone who pits them against each other, they're the ones that are losing because they feel like it's a one or the other type deal. And we're like, it's not.
Again, I think one of the problems with traditional publishing and other areas as well was the categorisation. I mean, you see it most obviously perhaps in bookshops, but you say, well, this is definitely fiction, this is crime. I mean, I think Saraband have been very good at kind of breaking those barriers down. This is, the Scottish section. You say all of these that you get, and actually that's not helpful to anyone anymore, because you're not looking at the subtleties of what being a reader is and how you cross over many different areas.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever gone in a bookshop and went, do you know what I want today? A Scottish book. And like that could, like, because I mean, I get the Scottish section, but I'm also like, that's literally every genre ever. And you're like, I don't know. It's just, it seems weird to separate them off from everyone else. So if you go to fiction, you can get fiction. But if you want Scottish fiction, you have to go to a separate section. And that's just stupid.
Absolutely.
But I also, I don't know. I don't work in a bookshop, so I get why they have to do it. But just from the outside, I'm like, I don't know.
So you mentioned your first book was Nasty Women, what people may well have heard of. Were you surprised at how that took off?
Yes.
Of course.
Of course. Of course you were.
I'm
Okay, let me put it another way. Did it change the way that you were going to, the way you viewed the whole,
Usually.
I mean, like, we always say it kickstarted Nasty Women, but it absolutely kickstarted just everything that we were doing. I'm just getting my smug story in just now, is that Laura was working the whole day. I'm grassing you up for this again.
Oh yeah, it's fine.
Laura was working the whole day that it launched at the Christmas market, and she thought, I was like, oh, we'll smash it, it'll be fine. And she thought, we'll get maybe like a couple, £200-300 on the first day. And then I got to phone her and be like, we got £2,500. And she's like, what? But I think that was the thing, just, you can't anticipate that kind of thing. And I think when we saw the reaction, we're like, okay, this is happening, which is reassuring, because we'd never done anything like that before. But just to have that much money, it just meant we could, like, not worry about it for a while and actually publish stuff, because we're both freelancers and we don't earn a lot of money. And we didn't have that much injected into 404 in the first place. So I think just immediately when we saw it go over 10,000 in like a week or something, we're like, okay, we can make the book and we can actually do something with the book. The first thing we did was we paid our contributors more as well, because we'd only gave them a kind of, not token fee, but it was kind of as much as we could afford ourselves if the Kickstarter failed. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, you can't really prepare for something like that, but it's just, I think it changed our confidence and everything as well. I think we were confident in Nasty Women, but
not that confident.
Not that confident.
Not £22,000 confident.
Yeah, and I think once it came in, we were just like, when we were doing other stuff like Hings, we were just like, it meant we had the money behind us, so we could just go full on and not worry about whether or not we could afford it. And I don't know, I don't think we ever expected to be able to afford stuff.
So, what kind of inspired you to do it in the first place as a book?
Yeah, Donald Trump. It annoys me that this is the downside. It's like it's annoying to be tied to Donald Trump because of the story, but it's literally his election. We're just
that is our fault for calling it something directly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so basically, we're in the day after or the morning after his election. Everyone was just so dejected because, like, he won on such an openly racist, misogynistic, hateful rhetoric, and you just like, how do you combat something like that? And just had the idea the next day to take the phrase nasty women and just give it to women who would probably be silenced, or people who try silence, or stories you don't really hear. And it just clicked into place because, I don't know, there was a lot of frustration and no one really knew how to channel that in an actual thing that would cause anything or do. It just felt like everyone was sad and there's nothing you could do about it. And we thought, we'll do this book, and it gives us a way to platform people who might not otherwise have a platform, and also it gives people a chance to vent their frustration into a project. So if they're not happy with stuff, they can go, here's my act of protest, is I'm going to help boost these voices.
I think that's the funny thing, when there's two wee Scottish girls in Scotland, quite far away physically from the Trump issues, just kind of basically doing put 'em up, put 'em up.
Yeah, like
we're shouty, you can't hurt us.
Yeah, we just figured, like, I don't know. No one, you can't, no one, evidently a year on, no one can do anything about Trump, but it just felt like it gave us some kind of purpose to channel the anger, because it wasn't just that, the whole year was a bit of a shit show of, like, racist, like, it's always been there, but it just kind of came to a head that year of how openly people can act like that and benefit from it. It just doesn't make sense, it's horrible. So it just kind of was like an actual thing to channel the frustrations into, and hopefully not take down the regimes and all that stuff, but at least have some kind of positive impact on someone is what we hope to do from it.
And that felt like a good first book.
Yeah.
Basically, that felt quite like a powerful statement. It was a ballsy one on our part, because I think it was almost like a make or break.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, we felt that, well, if we do nothing else, we've got this book out, and it's we're really proud of it.
Something we'd be proud of.
Yeah.
And when you started getting the essays in, because they are varied, well, what did you think about that? About the way that people had reacted to, your call to?
Oh, perfectly.
It was really humbling, actually, because like some of all the essays are very personal, but some of them are like so, like, they're a gut punch to read because they're so personal. And like when we first got them in the inboxes, because some people would pitch and send the idea, but some people would just pitch and send their essay or like a rough draft of it, and you're just reading them going, like, we had no thing behind us that said we were qualified to do this or like trust us, but they all just trusted us, and we got, like, I think just this project kind of spoke for itself and people trusted us, and I think we were just kind of really humbled. We were like, oh god, people are actually trusting us with like some of the worst parts of their lives to do it justice.
I worried that we would just get loads of essays about how terrible Trump is. I was a bit worried about that, and luckily no, everybody took it on a total different slant. Even the ones that are referencing Trump, like Chitra Ramaswamy's, she said to me, oh, actually I think it's more powerful if I don't use his name. So any paragraphs that she mentions, she just refers to him as the president, and doesn't use his name, which I really enjoyed. And so I like that the majority of the stories are just personal accounts of, again, being a woman, and some of them are framed around the difficulty today, but a lot of them are just age-old stories that I think exist to make today's younger men and women who are of the ilk, if you're going to support Trump, maybe more aware of...
I mean, a lot of them did feel like stories that people had been wanting to tell for some time, but just didn't know where to tell them.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like stuff like Jen McGregor's essay on like contraception and getting sterilised and stuff like that. Like, I've never read so much. I've never, like, contraception and women's health and stuff like that is not written about properly. No. Like, it's a minefield trying to work out what works and then what works for you and then the side effects and stuff. And actually seeing Jen kind of outline that, we were just like, I've literally never read anything like that before.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really helpful. I was actually at a book festival seeing Laura Bates, who did the Everyday Sexism Project, and a young girl in the audience was asking about the JAG that was referenced in the essay. And Laura Bates was like, she said she had no idea, so she didn't want to like give advice on it. But like loads of people were recommending it because they were just like, that's what you get done. And I was just like, can you please? I was like, if you see the girl on the sign here, can you please give her this book? I'm like, not to tell her what to do, but I was just like, she couldn't find any information anywhere about it. And I don't know, it's so bizarre that so much. I think the thing about Nasty Women is so many of the stories, it's not the first time they've been told, but I think it's the first time a lot of people have heard them.
Yeah.
Like, so definitively told, because just a lot is not talked about in mainstream press, or if it is, it's talked about in a very skewed or like stereotyped manner or judgmental manner. The contraception one, I think, is the one that's the easiest definable to be like, this shows, like, it's talked about a lot, but it's not really talked about properly.
Yeah, it's not talked about in a personal, individual manner. It is in, pamphlets that you're giving out at some, but you don't get the kind of human cost or the human kind of effect of it. Which I think a lot of the stories are like that. It's the human effect of it that it comes down. So as it kind of went on and on and on, were you thinking, how do we follow this?
Yes.
Yeah. I was terrified. I that's the downside to the success. The whole thing was great, but I was like, oh no, where do we go? Oh no.
Yeah, we didn't want to be pigeonholed as a feminist publisher. We are feminists who publish, is how we distinguish it. Because, like, I would love to publish feminist books all day long, but that is not what we initially set out to do. So when Chris came along, it was a kind of godsend. Because we'd already been talking about Chris before Nasty Women happened, and we were just like, he'd just be perfect. He's like, he's really talented and hilarious, but we're just like, it's so different to Nasty Women that, yeah.
It's kind of thing we don't have to worry. So we're not publishing something by a woman who's going to be compared to Nasty Women. Somebody, you know, if she wasn't in Nasty Women, she'd be like, oh, well, you're Nasty Women. If she was in Nasty Women, then be like, oh, well, it's just another one. It's just another Nasty Women book. We just knew we had to move on. Yeah. So with Chris, the story was I claim.
Oh, you can have.
I claim ownership of Chris. I remember he submitted to our first magazine, and that was the Glaswegian Sci-Fi I was talking about earlier. Really bizarre story, and we asked him to perform at our first event. Yeah, it was the launch for the magazine, and he nailed it. He apparently nearly bolted.
Yeah, he nearly bailed because it was the first time
we read in other press that he said that he was going to back out. And like,
his mum said, she's like, you'd be stupid to back out, and then.
So we should say again, going back to the idea of doing Chris's book after Nasty Women. It was I thought it was a great move for the reasons that you've set out, but also it had to be a really good book, which it is. I mean, it's one of the funniest. It's very difficult, I think, to be funny on page, and he manages it brilliantly. So, so you were saying he was ready to bolt from his first live appearance.
Yeah, and he nailed the event. He did turn up. You could see he had the nerves, but he powered right through it. And I think that night, a lot of the performances have been quite serious, quite dark, and he was that nice breath of fresh air in the room. Everybody, I think, was relieved to have something to laugh at. So it really bounced off, and he obviously really loved it. So I caught him afterwards and said, you know, was that good? Did you enjoy it? And he was like, oh, that was the best day of my life, which he said every time he's done an event, he has said that's the best time of his life, which is quite nice. But then, and I said to him, well, do you have a short story collection? Do you have more? And he's like, yeah. I was like, can you send it in, please? And again, in press, we've read that he thought we were just
being polite,
being publishers who say, please send us
what you've got.
Yes, quite. So he took a bit of prodding. I had to email him a couple of weeks later and say, "Oi, no, actually do this, please." And he did, and we wanted to sign him up immediately because he had all these stories that were from. He was putting them up on Medium, online, so he already had a fan base and people who loved the stories. So we'd read those and then said, "Well, do you have any more?" And he did. So we got some new ones for the book, and we took it from there basically. I was really glad to get him because I think he was thinking about going to Freight.
Right.
And I was like, no. You want to be with us.
Made the right choice. It should say the book's called Hings, short story collection, and you were saying he's going to be at the Glasgow Comedy Festival?
Yes, on the 15th of March at the Grosvenor Cinema. He's got, I think it's a 90-minute slot, and he's going to be reading from Hings, doing some stand-up and some sketches with some friends, I think. But yeah, it's going to be his first proper show outside of like just reading. So. And
it's odd to hear you say that, you know, he was nervous, and of course, you know, everyone gets nervous doing these things, but he is a very good performer. I mean, you know, he's got the charisma to carry it off, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Even like with the nerves on the first one, he was like amazing. It wasn't like he was good for a first time performer. Like he was just really good, and I don't know. I think until you actually take the leap and perform or do something that you don't really know.
It's just been so nice to see him blossom.
Yeah.
And again, it's a voice that actually is rarely heard. You know, a kind of young Glaswegian working class male. You don't get those. No matter, there's this whole idea of, you know, Clydesidism in the Glasgow book. That tends to be stereotypical hard man or detectives or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
To hear something that's actually closer to early Irvine Welsh kind of come out was new and really vibrant, actually. You know.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the humour is based in, not just the absurdism. It is a lot of the. I'm sure a lot of people know these exact characters, slightly exaggerated.
Well, like my best pal is from Shettleston, And like she said, she read the book, and one of the stories is based in Shettleston, and he references like the Shettleston Young Team or whatever they're called. She was like, they were on my street. And it's just like she's obviously never seen the Shettleston Young Team represent, and it's just kind of nice when you see people who are actually from Glasgow who are just like, I've never seen my town or whatever, or my part of town like written about.
But that's hugely important, I think. You know, people to have some kind of representation in arts or culture is because it kind of verifies that, well, I just don't, you know, it's not just me that thinks of this, I'm not just forgotten about, you know, there are people not just writing about it, but writing about it in a very upbeat and funny way, you know.
Yeah, I think the other thing is like, it's, even if things aren't necessarily positive, but it is positively written, it's not written like from a perspective of looking down on like Glasgow, because I feel like whenever I've read non-crimey books about Glasgow, a lot of it is kind of snobby. And it's just refreshing to read actual someone who's from Glasgow and who doesn't look down on Glasgow, and I don't know.
Or parts of Glasgow that aren't, you know, the West End and, you know, that sort of
Yeah.
I do feel that there's bound to be folk who read it who say, see that samurai sword you got for Christmas, I don't know what to do with it. Get the oranges out. But it is, it's as you say, it's stories that I think a lot of people, I told this story before on the podcast I did with Vicky Riley, but I'm going to tell it again. When Chris was at a school in North Glasgow, and Sam Best was the teacher of English there, and he said Chris, you know, just had the class in the palm of their hand, and you know, a lot of people who, what you were saying, would consider themselves a reader, but loved his stories, got a lot of the references because it was in that area, and were then asked to kind of write their own stuff, and instead of just, you know, putting their heads in the desk, they actually did it, they actually went for it. That's an incredible thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's the legs that Chris has, because even now he's studying creative writing right now, so he's working on getting better. Like, he's really taking this quite seriously. And it's nice that, oh yeah, it's like he told me that when he was at one of his classes, and they're all just working away, and his tutor was like, Chris, could you come up here please? He did, he wandered up and then looked around his computer, and then this tutor pointed at the screen and said, what's this? And it's his book on Amazon. Because Chris just hadn't told him that he'd had this book out. So he had to explain himself and just be like, oh no, I want to, you know, actually get better, you know, which I think is really admirable. Because I know a lot of authors who would just think, oh great, that's me set up for life.
I know what I do,
yeah. This is me, I'll just churn out more of the same. And he's like, no, he really wants to expand.
I can think of a few writers that it would have benefited them to try something else without naming names.
No.
So the next book was it the Goldman Variations that you brought out?
No, technically it was Creeper.
Right, well let's talk about Creeper, because
this is the odd one.
Yeah.
It's the one that confuses a lot of people.
Well, it says it's classified still on your website, so I wasn't sure how much we could talk about it.
Classified in the fictional world. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is your baby.
Yeah, we kind of rotate
I'm Chris.
on like who takes the.
Yeah, this is what keeps happening.
Yeah,
That's one was yours, Chris was mine, the Creeper's yours.
Yeah, basically we were looking for a book for the end of the year, and it would have been just after Dusty Women came out. So there's this rock band called Creeper, and they released their first album February, March time, and they're just so good. Basically, they do all the stuff in music that we wish the book world had. So they created like this whole concept album, but they do stuff like they've done like. So they performed at They performed at Reading Festival, and then they went missing after it, and all their social media, air quotes
for the audio.
And then they like disappeared off all social media, but then a number appeared, and then you'd phone the number, and it'd be like, on October 2nd we'll die holding hands. So then they're like, something's happening on October 2nd, and then they ran like a treasure hunt, so people would go in and out of Southampton to find this puzzle to work out what was happening. And we were just like, we like that, because they don't just release a song, they like make an event out of it, and they built this whole world around the character James Scythe, who went missing and his case is unsolved, and it's this whole paranormal thing. And we were like, well, that's the perfect thing to do a book for. So I kind of floated the idea by them when they were touring, and they just loved it. And yeah, that's kind of where that came about. So it's the report of the officer who was looking into his disappearance, and it's all the case files from that. But yeah, just Creeper felt like such a good fit for us. They released their first album, and then at the end of the year they won loads of awards as well. So we feel like we've had this weird mirror thing with them.
Them on a much bigger scale than us,
Oh
obviously.
yeah, on a much bigger scale, but like...
But yeah, you met up with them first, earlier in the year, and then you kind of convinced me that this was potentially going to be a good idea, so then we flew down to Southampton together to kind of meet them, and all this had to be crazy secret. Like, none of this was...
Yeah.
We had like 6 months of not telling people we were doing it.
Yeah, which was a pain.
Even for me, because all my best pals really like Creeper, and I was like, no, can't say anything.
Never heard of them.
I was like,
Yeah. So... That was a lot of fun. It was really hard.
Oh yeah, it was the most stressful. Like, it's cute because Nasty Women was really stressful. I'm like, we won't do this again. And then like it was worse with the Creeper one. It's just because it was hardback. It was all images, and it's like so intricate. And they were touring in America, and we were doing whatever.
We were not.
Doing. I don't know what. I was like the book festival and stuff like that. So it was just. But it looks amazing.
It came together very quickly. Far too late.
So,
like it was months behind schedule kind of thing.
Yeah. Nasty Women went to print 2 weeks before it was due to come out, and we were like, oh, we'll never do that again. I'm sorry to bring this up. The Creeper book went to print a week before its published date, and we managed to get it on time.
We had to drive to the printers to pick it up straight off the press, and then drive it into bookshops, kind of thing. It was,
because it was tied to their tour. But
yeah,
it's just one of those. I think we just wanted a book that was different. It's really weird because with our books we don't actually think what we want to publish, we think who we want to publish, and we just so like Chris was an amazing fit, and like Creeper, they just felt like they would be perfect to do a book with, and they're so creative and fun, and we also, our main thing is we love rock music, so we're like, it would just be quite nice to move into that field slightly.
And then it meant that we could go on tour with them in December, which we didn't say tour with them, again air quotes, we
did the tour.
We went to each of the dates and sold the book there. Oh yeah.
It was good until the last day.
Yeah.
There was the blizzards across England.
Right.
So we were driving from Manchester to Southampton and picked up a car at 5 a.m, and at 5 p.m. we finally got out of the car in Birmingham.
God.
Yeah, we got like 9 hours in, and then a police car came up the opposite side of the road just going, the south is closed, and we're like, so we had to phone them and be like, we're not going to make it here. So we ended up getting a train home for way too much money.
For £250.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
that,
the glamour.
I mean, that's the only, still wrong.
I'm interested, how did the book get written then? I mean, was it from the band that wrote it? Or?
It's two members of the band, Will and Ian. It's the singer and the guitarist. They've been mates going back years. So they've been in loads of bands together, and Creeper is their most recent.
They created this whole world between the two of them, so like that's their kind of baby, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so we just kind of, when I met them, I was like, well, here's the various ideas for a book that I would think as a fan would be quite good. And then from that we just worked together. So then at that meeting they told us they told me the whole story to pass on to you, and it was kind of a collaborative thing. But yeah, we knew what the story was, and we just had to work out how to...
We had to fill some blanks, because a lot of the stories had been built, amongst some marketing campaigns,
Yeah.
So we had like all the key facts about when he goes missing, when like his wife dies, when this happens, when this happens. So we had to figure out, he goes missing for this time. We realised at one point, we looked at the timeline, there was like a gap of 7 years that we had to fill up.
Yeah, but
so we sat there going, right, okay. So our kind of like writing chops got tested that really.
The other thing is like what I like about it is it's kind of like the Twin Peaks book where you can read it, but there's no one way to read it, and same with like S by J.J. Abrams. So it's like there is no set way to read it, and there are lots of different conclusions you can draw. But the thing I like about it is that there's loads of like Easter eggs in the book, but people have read it as a book because they think it's a book. But we're like, see if you actually look, there's like loads of stuff that's outside the book that you can like. So like
there's URLs and stuff that it exists.
Yeah.
If you email an address in there, you'll get an auto response with more in there.
But no one's realised that yet, and
really?
which is quite good because we're just like, well, at some point someone's going to notice something, and then
people are going to start looking into it.
It's one of those, because I get the ending is quite confusing because it's like there's no start finish, but we're like the ending is there, sort of.
Yeah.
No,
and if you're the Creeper fan base is insanely dedicated. It's very much, again, you're mentioning My Chemical Romance, that kind of fandom.
Right.
So they're on average a bit younger than us. So really avid into, they're invested.
Like my favourite thing, so like not to harp on about My Chem, but like when I was like younger, My Chem were like my band, and I would know everything about them, so like any detail I'd be like, I'm on it. So when we did the Creeper thing, we teased that they were doing a book, but no one knew they teased because we weren't involved at that point in this thing. And 2 teenage girls, they just got it. They went, you're publishing a book with 404. They put it all together. They even emailed us to check, and we sent this like blacked out fake email back. But like we met them in Manchester, we're just like, that's so cool that actually loads of people were like, what's happening? And these 2 teenage girls just like knuckled down with all the facts, and they just got it. And she came with like a whole folder full of notes that she'd taken from the book, and I was just like, that's what I wanted from this book. It's like I wanted to do a book that Creeper wanted, but I also wanted to do a book that the kind of me as a 14-year-old fan would go, right, this is it kind of thing.
My favourite thing is when we first teased it, when you sent out a picture of the diary to press. So some of the press started sharing it, and we shared it, and then Creeper shared it. And there was a number written on the back, which was the date that we were
12.
Yeah, the date we were going to announce it. But we didn't say it, so it's just a number. And my god, the fan base went mad trying to figure out this number.
We had to release more things to counter stuff because people were like, well, we didn't know this, they only had 11 music videos out. So they're like, well, the 12th video is going to be room 309 because they were and we were like, nope, that's not it. So we had to like backtrack that. And then there was one like 309 days in the year. So on the 309th day, this thing's, and we're like, no.
No, my favourite one that we had, I was slightly terrified about it.
Was it coordinates?
Yeah, it was when somebody thought that was a coordinate and they looked it up and it was a coordinate in a field, but outrageously outside of Southampton, which is where they're from.
Right. I
can't believe the chances of that. So I could see them started talking about, well, maybe we should go out into that field, and oh god, I'm going to feel responsible if they go out and start digging up some poor farmer's field, and we have to
power line or something.
Yeah, so luckily they naturally.
Yeah, we had to like message Will and Ian and be like, we're going to send you more stuff to put out to try to get people, because it's like it was amazing, but we just didn't actually, because we were just like, well, this clearly means that, and then when it got released, we were like, oh no, because but that's what we think book marketing lacks. Like I can't, like, there's so many books that come out and I don't remember ever seeing them being announced. So if we announce a book, we want it to be like a thing.
And then I think if you're okay with it really causing waves with that one little niche of an audience you've chosen, it doesn't have to be everyone. Because again, Nasty Women, Hings and Creeper are all completely, generally different audiences. And if you really nail the ones you're focused on, that's great. That causes ripples for the rest of them.
Yeah, I feel like too much of book publishing or just stuff in general is like trying to cater to everyone. I'm like, no, just find something that's really good and just aim for the people who you think will like it most. Like,
So most people won't know about that Creeper thing. That's how powerful that book was. Look like, oh well, we don't know what that is. We don't care. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah,
like, we're totally fine with people not getting it.
It's been quite funny seeing some people we know in the book world trying. They're like, so the Creeper book, and we're like, you don't need to talk about this.
Yeah, we don't.
It's okay.
We know you don't know. It's fine.
No, we can skip over that.
Yeah.
So.
But music in general seems to be important in kind of what you do and how you kind of do it. Having been at your events and stuff like that. Was that always going to be the case? You thought?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think for me, like, my background's in music journalism, and I have been an avid reader of music books, and it took me until I was like maybe 18 to realise I don't think I'd read a single one about or by a woman. And it was like, it's all, I mean, I like Guns N' Roses, but I read like everything to do with like Guns N' Roses and that, and I'm like, it's just the same story, like Motley Crue, whoever, and it's the same book over and over, and it's the same dude getting the same book deal over and over, just a different band. And I don't know, maybe at some point we want to do more music stuff, but we just like the idea of actually doing the more interesting side of music publishing, because like we've all heard the sex, drugs and rock and roll thing, and like Gene Simmons has slept with 3,000 women, but I'm like, how many books does he need to say that? Like, so I like music too much to let it be like a Gene Simmons club more. So I think with the Creeper thing, they're a band, and it's the thing, Mind Cam again, they're the perfect band to do a book with, but they obviously didn't do a book properly. But like, there's so many bands who do such creative things, and it just stays as music and video, which is good, but there's so many other things they can do, and I think that's where we're more interested, is like maybe offering more creative bands an opportunity to expand into an area that would be harder for them to do otherwise.
And when you've done events, you do have music, you do have spoken word, basically if anything that you think it's going to be a performance poetry, whatever it is, things. I think that's something else that traditional publishing has not quite got its head round, which is odd. You would think, these should be nights out for people, and they might not like all the music, but they might be there to see a reader, and then you're having this kind of cross of things, rather than have one reader, one book, questions after 40 minutes, that's us, time's up, sign some books and away. But I just think but it's amazing how many, having spoken to them myself, how many publishers, when you say, well, have you thought of putting a band on, are kind of like, oh no, I don't think they would want to do that.
Yeah. No, we wanted to do that. We wanted it in London, the London launch of Nasty Women. We really wanted that to be a gig. Yeah. We wanted that to be a place where you get drunk, basically. And we couldn't work out a full band in the end, but we got Ren from Nasty Women. She kind of karaoke'd her own song.
Oh, it was so
But
good.
it still works. So she had like the backing of her song on really loud, and then her just screaming along with it, and just I think terrified the audience, and I love that. And again we had Fisty Muffs at our last gig in December in Glasgow, and I think you just reminded me how it goes back full circle. This is going back, classical times, and it's reminded me of when I studied English literature at Edinburgh, that writing is always meant to be performed. That's how it was performed.
Yeah.
You'd never sit in a house on your own quietly reading, and that's it. So I think we've gone full circle and that we've gone through that period, and it'd be nice to go back to getting readers out together to experience literature all together.
Yeah.
And so it's less of an isolated experience. I do find, like last year, it's the busyness of 404 that I barely read anything. I don't think I actually did read a full book. And I think it's now when I do sit down, I feel like, I'm a bit isolated. I just want to be with other readers, and I think an environment of a performance, especially with a band, music crosses so many barriers that I think that's something we really want to have involved.
I like book launches at bookshops, but it's the same thing as like that. You've got one person reading, so only people will come for that person, and you're not going to discover it. Like if I'm going to a book launch, I already like the writer, or I think it's someone I'm going to like. I don't think I'm going to be surprised by it. And just like the idea that you can go to a night out. Like I think it's because we've been working with, and a lot of our friends are in spoken word, so we've kind of borrowed that from them. It's like you go to see one person at a spoken word show, and then you're like, everyone else is amazing. And I just think that kind of if you have one event for one person for one book, you kind of lack the idea that people can discover it.
Yeah.
Because they need to be convinced of the thing before they go to the event. And I don't know, I think it's the same, because we're really busy at the moment. I can't go to nearly as many events as I used to do, so I'm kind of like, I just don't go to, even like my favourite authors could do like a book event and I'm just like, oh. I don't know.
I've already seen it.
Yeah, but like, that's what it is. I think once you've already seen someone, you've already seen them, and I think it's more interesting to do it in a performance thing. 'Cause you can go see the same. Like I will go see a band 1,000,000 times because they'll do different stuff every time, and I think that's the thing that kind of book events kind of lack, is it's usually the same thing read, the same format, and I think there could be some zhuzhing of it.
I think that's where if you've got a literary magazine, you have got the perfect place to kind of get different readers, and so someone might go, well, I've heard of Chris McQueer, but I'm going to go along here and then say, oh, this sounds interesting, that person, and you do get. I've often thought that in the same way that bands have support acts, that book launches could have support readers, someone like coming along.
Chris's launch in Edinburgh. So we did the bookshop launch in Glasgow, but we did one in Edinburgh, and he had like a 5-performer bill for him, and it was like, so we knew Jen McGregor, I think it was, and Ross McCleary were the two that I'd heard read, but we had Sam Small and Layla Josephine and
Martin McGarty.
And I'd never heard any of them, and like Layla in particular, I was just like, she is amazing, how have I not heard of her? And I think it was way more fun. Like the Glasgow one was good, but like actually just everyone drinking, everyone seeing loads of different performers, Chris coming up a few times in between, a lot of the performers being different to him but for the same kind of audience, like the overlap. We're just like, that's how we want our book launches to be, and I think that's what we want to keep doing. So like obviously we have Helen coming up, and it's not going to be quite as rowdy, but I think we still want to do something slightly different. So we have her actual book launch, but we'll find something that
unusual to do with it.
Just more interesting and intriguing.
I think I think we have based like a literary crush on Noiriki.
Oh yeah.
We kind of want to be the publisher version of Noiriki, I think, ultimately. Because when we did do a reading for them, that was terrifying. Just being
in front of that many people reading not our own words.
Yeah, that was a thing. I really want us to have, because it's going to be our 2-year birthday in July this year.
And spoilers.
So it would be nice to do like a really big bash.
Yeah.
It's kind of in our long-term plans, and I like the idea, instead of doing loads of little ones, we just do one big one in a big venue somewhere that we can just get all the literary people of Scotland into. That's kind of my dream, but I don't.
There's like so many anniversaries of stuff happening, and I'm like, where was your party? Why are you not having parties? Like, because I have a party every year for it. Like, we're going to do this every year just to be like, we're 3. Like, that's an irrelevant number. But, like, when you get to, like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, I'm like, why aren't you throwing parties? People would come.
Yeah.
You'd
it's
sell
a business. It's a business thing as well. You sell books there.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not just everybody you know.
Yeah, and, like, you've got all these authors, like, I don't know.
But you think people think they only do that when they have something new rather than
Something
selling
new,
something.
or it'll
I think
be.
they think people don't care about the publisher, so they won't show up. Whereas we're like, if you threw a party every year, people would show up and it'd be banging. Like, I don't know, I just
Or it'd be
think,
something like Hachette, who would do it on their rooftop
Yeah.
in London and have, Neil Gaiman there and all the industry people there. So
Yeah.
it's very closed off, whereas I think we'd have a much more open.
But I think it goes back to what we spoke at the beginning about people feeling they belong or at least they're part of something. Then I think if you say we're putting on a 404 Inc. gig, people go, yeah, we're going because we trust that's what you do. And I mean, it happens again a bit with record labels. If,
Oh, yeah.
they say, well, or no, it's a great example. I don't care what they're putting on. I know they're going to put on something that we're going to go and enjoy, whatever it is, because you trust the curators of the whole thing.
That was our long-term plan. We really wanted 404 to be a brand that you kind of go, oh, yeah, that's like a tick of approval, and we trust that.
And the other thing is, like, the problem on the event side is, like, when you're doing books, this focus is the books, and we're like, well, we're doing books, but we want to build all this other stuff around the books. So, like, stuff like audiobooks and that, we'll just do it ourselves, and we'll build all this other stuff and try to do more interesting stuff. I think for us as well, and the author, because, like, making books is fun, but if we were just making the books and then punting them out, it would be quite repetitive. Whereas actually, we've got so many amazing authors, we should, like, we've got the pub with them.
And I guess if you've not got time to go to other people's events, you might as well make your own ones. As
Yeah.
That was one of our New Year's resolutions last year, is we're going to, like, take days off, because we didn't do that last year, and we're going to actually try go to more events. And I think I've been to more events so far this year than I did for, like, the whole last 6 months.
I haven't yet, just because I've been ill.
You've got New Writers Awards.
I was going to do that anyway.
But that's
That's a shindig.
Yeah, that's in the literary calendar.
yeah.
You mentioned Helen McClory, and I'm a bit of a fanboy of her myself. I think she's fantastic. So she brought out the Goldblum variations. Let's talk a little bit about that. Can you?
So basically, what actually happened was, so we signed Helen back in August, and we kept it secret for a few
was
months.
that long?
And she'd been writing Mayhem and Death, which is a lot darker than her previous books. So she went, as a bit of a detox, I've written a short story thing on Jeff Goldblum, would you want to do anything with it? And I was like, let me talk to Laura. And then I was like, yes. So yeah, she just wrote it as a detox to all the kind of dark stuff in her previous books. And then we read it and it was just hilarious. But it just...
She wrote it in 2 days. She wrote it very publicly, so she was talking about it on Twitter and getting...
Yeah, because she tweeted going, would anyone want that? Or should I write it? And I was like, I would publish the hell out of that. So then she DM'd me and she's like, would you? And I was like, yeah. And she sent us it and we're just like... Because we were already talking about doing something with Chris, like a pamphlet, and it just made sense that we could do them both. It was quite weird actually, because I actually had to be on the phone to lawyers about this, because it's a Jeff Goldblum thing, I had to talk to lawyers and be like, can we do this without getting in trouble? And they said, which is now my favourite line, what are the chances of Jeff Goldblum seeing it? They gave us actual legal advice as well, but like, what are the chances of Jeff Goldblum seeing it? And I was like, well, I would probably have sent him it anyway, but then Jeff Goldblum came across it himself and we're like, yes. It's just, I don't know, it's just bizarre.
I think these days, pretty much the chances are of someone coming across something like that are really high.
Yeah.
Because if it's out there and it's got their name, I'm not saying Jeff's sitting Googling himself night and day,
He
but...
tracks his name on Instagram, that's how he found it.
Yeah.
Which is like, but I was just, yeah, I don't know.
Because I've seen him talking about bad tattoos of him.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
So he is aware of the obsession that is out. But as you said, Mayhem Death, which is a short story collection that Helen's got coming out. Yeah, talk a little bit about that if you can.
Oh yeah, that's coming out in that. Oh god, 2 months.
Yes.
Yeah, so On the Edges of Vision was the first one. That was the
Yeah.
Saltire Society award winning for first book of the year in 2015.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. And again, you were kind of in love with it.
Oh, I love it. It was like my favourite book I read that year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw Helen say that the copyright had reverted back to her because the publisher who published it doesn't publish anymore, basically.
Yeah, they were based in Texas, of all places, so they were wrapping up. So the rights had reverted. I can't remember if that was after we signed off, just before. Was it before?
No, we literally emailed her because the rights reverted. Because we were like, we approached her and we were like, do you want to republish that and do you have another collection? Because we'd be interested in that. And then she was just like, yeah. And so it was literally when she tweeted saying that she had the rights to her original collection, we were like, because when we set up 404 and people were like, what do you want to publish? We were like, I don't know, someone like Helen McClory was how we would describe it. So when we saw like that she had that and she'd been writing new stuff. We felt like we'd be a good fit, and we feel like we can give her the time that she's maybe not had with previous publishers and actually like put a lot of effort behind a lot of stuff. And
yeah. So so we signed Mayhem and Death at the book festival.
Yep.
It felt very official. I'd never been to the Edinburgh Book Festival on terms of business before. Have a meeting with her and Jenny Brown, her agent. That's our first time working with an agent as well, but I know Jenny, so that was nice. And she seemed keen on our vision for it because the feel of it is very quite mythical, a contemporary twist, dark twist on mythical creatures and ideas that people will be familiar with probably. So I just while I was reading it, I was like, I can really envisage, I can see woodcut illustrations and designs accompanying this. So that's like every story is going to have an illustration to make it just more of a beautiful object.
Wow,
as well. So we're currently working on that. Currently working on the cover, which is our hardest cover yet by far. But we've been really lucky that Nasty Women, a couple of days.
Yeah, it was
really.
like one of the first drafts of Nasty Women is pretty much what it is.
That's what it was. Chris took only a couple of drafts. Really, that was pretty quick. Creeper was effectively done for us pretty quickly. So this is the one where we're like, oh, this is hard to do because she's already got some kind of reputation. Because I think for the other books, this was all fresh.
Yeah.
So she's already got a reputation, so we kind of had to fit into something, and so I think we're just about there.
Yeah, we
now.
got drafts through yesterday that we're
happy with. So I think we're just about there. So we really wanted to give her just a fresh brand and that push, because again, it's like her first publisher closed, and then her next one was Freight, and I believe the Freight madness started on the day that
it was
her debut book launched.
Yeah.
So she's had a really rough ride of it, and we really want to give her a good go. So we're giving her, hopefully, a really nicely produced book, and I'm really intrigued to see how people are going to react to it after On the Edges of Vision, because it's so different.
Yeah.
I think you can tell it's the same writer, but thematically it's very dark. It's not easy. It's not easy reading.
Is it quite different from Flesh and Peach as well? Then is there, because there's some dark themes in that?
Yeah, I think the themes. I think thematically it might be a bit of a continuation, but in its own right, it's a challenge. It's definitely literary fiction, and we haven't done literary fiction yet, so we're gonna have some fun, I think.
Yeah.
Working on that one.
I'm interested. I was looking through the kind of introduction to Error just to see kind of original. And one of the things you said was we want to publish debut novels, and that's still kind of.
Yeah,
is that seen as maybe the most difficult thing to do?
I think
guess
the main problem we have is we don't read full books. Like, this is one thing we've learned, like, because of time and just things.
Yeah, anymore. Used to.
All the
time.
Yeah.
Like, I would read 100 books a year, but since we launched 404, I can't. I think last year I still read a lot, but not like anywhere near as much. And I think to put a novel out, it's not so much more effort, but you've got to be 100% behind one story.
Yeah.
And I think we've found working with short stories, there's a lot. I don't know. I think it just suits us a lot better just now, and we've not quite found the novel that we're like, this is the one.
We're still very much on the lookout.
Yeah.
There's one by one certain author who I'm trying to get out of him, but he's still working on it.
Annoyingly. But it's
so
just,
like,
I don't know, the novel just seems like a big leap for us, and we're just like, we want it to be, I don't know, I think it's a harder and higher benchmark because neither of us are big readers at the moment because of everything else. So for us to like a novel, or for us to publish a novel, it has to be something that we would read in our current state, I think, is how we're viewing it, because that's a pretty high benchmark to get past, but I don't...
But, every publication we've talked about, and it's, as you say, if you looked at it as its own entity, and you've put absolutely everything behind that one thing, and got it to the best that it can be, and it sounds like you're doing the same with Helen's collection. And it's really refreshing to hear, because I'm a huge mistake, as I'm sure both of you know, is that publishers, when they start to sell a few books, go, well, let's sell 10, or let's get all these, and this huge mistake of trying to kind of publish all these people that nobody can have read them all really that well to say, tick them off and go, I think I'm really behind this book. And as we know, that can cause all sorts of issues in the long term. So you really would want to have someone that you go, I like every other book that we've done, we want to get this right and we're right behind it, and we can almost know the audience that we're going to be catered to.
Yeah, because I think the problem we're having just now is with everything that's going on, we do have open submissions, and it's like our biggest failing is how long it takes us to read through them all. So we're trying to get through them because I don't know, we just are. But yeah, I think the novel's it's just hard. Like, I don't know. There's not many novels that I pick up at the moment in general that I can get through. So actually, to find one that we're like, this is the one, hopefully this year. I think we've got all of our books sorted for this year anyway. Not one single novel.
Yeah.
Again.
I think we're all pretty much programmed up to spring next year.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's true. We got one next year.
We have. But it'll happen. I think the thing is annoyingly confident.
Yeah, I think a novel, not necessarily that it takes more money, but I think the risk on that one's greater, and at the moment we're just doing lots of not smaller projects, but these are kind of we want to be sustainable is basically the thing. So like Nasty Women and Things and All, it was amazing, and 2017 was amazing, but this year we're looking forward to just quiet and being sensible and just working away and trying to like work out how to be sustainable and not crash and burn 404.
Yeah.
And then once we have nailed that, then the novel will come along. Yeah. We're just trying to be sensible this year.
No, I mean, I think that's right. You know, what you've also said is you want people to get paid, which, you know, in creative industries is becoming more and more difficult, or not difficult, but just rare. And you don't want to bankrupt yourself. And I think, you know, we've kind of always gone back to old publishing models, but that was the problem with a lot of old publishing models, and why a lot of them are no longer with us. Future, what are you doing next? Is there anything you can talk about?
We're launching a Kickstarter next week.
Well, excellent timing.
Yeah. We partnered with BHP Comics in Glasgow to do a graphic novel anthology called We Shall Fight Until We Win, and it's celebrating the centenary of the first wave of women getting the right to vote in the UK.
All right.
So we've got a lot of creators who are going to be kind of retelling a lot of the stories of women across all the decades since then. So from like suffragettes to firsts in politics and revolutionaries and activists and stuff like that. We're still working out the actual what women are going to be covered in it, but yeah, we're launching that next week. And I think that kind of a large part of that comes back to the payment thing, because actually paying people in comics is a lot more expensive, because obviously there's a lot more to it. So that was one of the first things we had with BHP, is like we need to work out how to pay people properly or we can't do it. So we're just like Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So hopefully that goes well.
Yeah. I hope people don't expect a Nasty Woman 2 just because it's us on Kickstarter. That's going to be our biggest challenge to say, this isn't the same thing. It'd be nice to have quite so much excitement, but we're prepared for it to just
trickle.
Yeah.
Were you ever tempted Nasty Woman 2 sequel?
Oh, we were going to do one every year. Like, this is how stupid we were at the start of 26. We actually thought we would do one every International Women's Day that Trump was in power, because we were idiots, basically. But yeah, it's just
we were drunk on the power.
Yeah, we're going to do one. I think we did it in the back of the Nasty. We put it in the like, we'll be publishing for as long. Which, I mean, we will, and we won't shut up and stuff. But like in the back of Nasty Women, we went on some high horse about how many stuff we're going to how many things we're going to publish.
Yeah, no, and I like the idea of if he's still around after 4 years, or maybe even 8.
It's 2 terms, isn't it? That's
yeah, exactly. Then maybe a kind of retrospective. Maybe we'll publish a collection of maybe some of the same writers on a
like
reflection of what's happened, and maybe some news stories. I can see there being something, and I think it'd be nice to do something that kind of wraps up that that name of Nasty Women, and then we don't have to touch it again. Yeah. But yeah,
because we do get asked quite a lot about doing other anthologies that are kind of similar, but we're just like, Nasty Women's our thing, and we don't want to dilute Nasty Women and take away the impact, but we also don't want to do a disservice to other books who were like, well, we can't do that again. Like, there's no way it'll be anywhere near the same. So we've had this weird thing with anthologies where we're like, people think we would like to do more, and a lot of people come to us, but we're just like, we can't do it the same justice, especially so close to it. So it's a bit tricky.
No. But in terms of future, we are doing another anthology.
On that note, we're doing another
in 2019, the Queer Words Project Scotland, which is run by Ryan Vance, he approached us months ago with a beautiful pitch. It had spreadsheets and it had graphs. It was amazing. Like, we never get taken out to coffee and then have a presentation about why we should publish our book. But it was very much in line with our ethos. Like, if we're going to publish an anthology, it needs to be of its own It can have its own purpose, and this one's much more local, because it's for queer writers in Scotland. So this will be very much of an audience just locally. But it's nice that that's all entirely in his power. We're kind of, I say, just the publishers. We're going to pop in on this as soon as he's got work. But the theme behind it is that he's got 4 mentors available for queer writers to work on their writing, whether it's about actually in reference to queer themes or not. Like the point is that they just have a bit more representation, because a lot of queer writers feel like they're not represented right now. So he'll be working over that over the next few months, and get writing from these people who will be mentored, and then we'll publish the anthology sometime next year.
Yeah. When does this podcast go online? Just because the deadline's like not passed yet. But if it's not online in time, do you know when it is?
Monday.
Oh, it's Monday. Never mind then.
We can probably get this out for Monday.
No.
Because then they'd have to. I was like, they'd have to just rush submissions. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's cool. But yeah, it's just one of those, like, we get so many pictures, but we just saw that one, and he was just so like perfectly like, this is where 404 fit in. I don't know. Quite excited for that one. It's also the furthest ahead we've planned anything, because we're quite
over a year. It's really nice to have this little project that I'm sure we're going to get far too comfortable about. We're going to forget about it, and then it'll creep up, and it'll be like, oh, it's a few months away. Great.
So when you say that for this year you've said we're going to take days off, and we're going to just hopefully go and see more things, and just kind of smell the coffee. Is that right? Has it been hard going? Obviously, that's a stupid question, but yeah. Yeah,
we had a
breakdown,
burnout moment in December where, because it was after the Creeper tour, because that was just, so we were on the tour around the UK. We flew back up to Edinburgh to launch the 3rd magazine. Flew back down the next day for a gig. Then that was the snow thing happened, and then we had to get back up, and then we had the Glasgow gig, and then we were done. But I was still working at the Christmas market, because I worked there.
And I started a freelance job the day we came back.
Yeah.
But we were planning on writing a blog about it prior to that, but then those 2 weeks happened, and we were just like, we'd kind of not gone off that. We were like, we don't know if we're going to have time to do it. And then we were like, after those 2 weeks, we were like, we need to find... So we wrote a blog called We're Tired as Fuck. And it's literally just an outline of all the stuff that you don't see, and we're like, it's kind of important to acknowledge, because we've been in the position where stuff hasn't been going well for us work-wise or whatever, and then you see someone else succeed and you're just like, why is that not me? Everything's amazing for everyone else. So we're like, we want to write a blog to highlight the fact that we've had an amazing year, but personally it has taken a huge toll on us. Like, we had a really rough, and even beyond like just the personal toll, we had like stuff like both of us had a grandparent die, and it was rubbish basically, obviously. But we didn't really post that online, because we just keep our...
Oh yeah.
We have the whole, everything's amazing. So yeah, we wanted to do that, but we also just wanted to acknowledge like our failings of like, we can't get back to emails as quickly as we'd like. There's a volume of stuff that we can't deal with. We also are self-inflicting it, because we don't take any time off. We would work 7 days a week into the night for stuff. So then it was actually just this point of going, we're actually going to take a day off a week. We're actually not going to do this. We're going to feel less bad about not getting back to emails as quickly as we'd like, because we are still doing it. It's just taking a long time, and it's just, I don't know.
It's funny, since we put out that blog, a lot of people have come and apologised. I'm really sorry for sending you so many emails on that day. I'm so sorry for doing that. Like, it's not right, really. It's fine.
Yeah.
I took Saturday off last week.
Yeah, I've been taking actual days off.
I sat on that sofa in the duvet. I just played Assassin's Creed all day. I think it was 8 hours. I just played video games. It was good.
Yeah, I'm not really I'm getting married in 2 weeks, and I'm like, I've got days off,
you
but I don't really. But
that's quite extreme to take time off.
I know, but I'm like, I've booked a 2-week holiday, and I've booked another holiday this week, so I mean, like, we're actually making ourselves do it. And I think the other thing is, we were always quite good at, if one person was burning out, the other person would refuse to reply to them, so they'd have to stop working.
Yeah.
So now we've got quite good at telling the other person they're burning out, rather than just ghosting them and hoping they stop working. But yeah, I think this year, it's only like 4 weeks, but we've got better at balancing stuff. It's just Nasty Women set off this whole snowball thing last year that we just couldn't really stop. And actually having the few weeks over Christmas, because we didn't have last Christmas off because of Nasty Women. We worked every day. And it never occurred to us until this year that we did that. So I think the year was amazing, but it's also quite good for really realising where our limits were. So that's why we're looking forward to a quiet year.
Well,
for various reasons.
I hope you realise how worth it has all been, because it's been the most kind of inspiring story in Scottish publishing for years, I think, anyway.
Oh, that's nice.
And I think that's the perfect place to leave it, so thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
And we'll be back very soon with something completely different. Cheers.